What if Anakin Skywalker returned to Umbara during the Clone Wars to fight General Krell? That's our story for today. Let's get right into it. Our story begins on Umbara as clone troopers Jesse and Fives have been sentenced for execution because of their actions. These two clone troopers, along with Hardcase, took Umbaran fighters to the battle in space and managed to infiltrate the Umbaran supply ship, blowing it up from the inside, just like Anakin did to the Trade Federation ship at the Battle of Naboo so long ago. The only problem was that doing this went directly against the orders of Jedi General Pong Krell. He ordered the ships to be locked down, as he didn't think the mission would be worth the low risk of success, and even in the face of him being wrong, Krell wants these clones executed. Captain Rex was ordered by Krell to put together an execution squad, or Krell said he would do it himself. Rex had no choice, and so as the clones were organizing all of this, Clone Trooper Kix decided he could not let this happen. He needed to get a message to General Skywalker, inform him of these terrible orders from Krell. Kix considered his options for a while. He couldn't send a message to Anakin from here because comms were being jammed by the Umbarans, but if he could just get to space, then he would be clear to transmit a message. Kix handed medic duties off to one of the clones learning from him, and he snuck through the hangar bay all the way to the last ship in line. He got inside of the ship and got himself familiar with the controls before quietly taking off, staying just barely above the tree line so sensors would not pick him up. Luckily, Krell, Rex, and everyone else were far too focused on the battle and the executions coming up to notice Kix's disappearance, and once out of range, he flew through the atmosphere until the comm disruptions were no longer an issue, and Kix managed to use Anakin's secure frequency, a frequency that was available to all 501st members in case of emergency. Kix waited and waited, hoping that Anakin was near his ship, and all the way on Coruscant, Anakin just landed his ship in the Jedi Temple hangar and was about to board a transport to Palpatine's office when R2-D2 started chirping excitedly, telling Anakin he has a message. Anakin ran back to R2, and soon he saw a hologram of Kix. The clone took a deep breath and began telling Anakin everything as quickly as he could. When Kix told Anakin about the clones blowing up the supply ship, Anakin laughed, saying that he told Fives about the time he did that on Naboo. But Kix was not laughing, so Anakin asked what was going on, and Kix told him that Fives and Jesse are set to be executed for treason. They went against Krell's orders. Anakin honestly couldn't believe what he was hearing. Fives and Jesse perfectly executed their duty as Republic soldiers. Hardcase sacrificed himself for it, and now Krell is executing them. Anakin remembered all the times he disobeyed orders, and all the times he encouraged his men to disobey orders if they thought they were wrong. He could not let this happen. Anakin considered telling Palpatine or the Jedi Council, anyone, but there was no time for deliberation. He jumped into his ship and thanked Kix for bringing this to his attention, before rising through Coruscant and jumping to hyperspace for Umbara. Once Anakin was gone, Kix took a deep breath and was very thankful for the loyalty of Skywalker. Unfortunately, Anakin would not be arriving for quite a while. The trip through hyperspace was long, and Krell was intent on the clones being executed and the new battle beginning. But as Fives and Jesse were about to be executed, the firing squad of clones dropped their blasters in unison, refusing to do this after Fives and Jesse gave a powerful speech to them. Rex gave his own words to Krell about how this was very wrong. Krell finally accepted this, and he would send the clones back into battle, warning Rex and the 501st that the enemy was seen stealing clone trooper weapons and armor. Once Fives and Jesse were safe, Kix wondered if he made a mistake contacting Anakin. Maybe everything would be alright without Anakin. But he could not be more wrong. In the commencing battle, Rex and the 501st charged in at their enemy, and just as Krell said, the enemy was wearing stolen armor of the clones. The start of the battle was terribly bloody, with clones shooting who they thought to be Umbarans. But Rex soon saw underneath the helmet of one of their dead enemies. They weren't Umbarans. General Krell sent the 501st and the 212th against each other, with all of the clones thinking they were fighting Umbarans. And for each one of them, this was the final straw. Rex gathered a group of around 20 of the best clones, and they began marching towards the tower that Krell was waiting in. They were going to arrest him for treason. But as they were marching to the tower entrance, a Jedi starfighter entered the atmosphere, landing down in front of them. Anakin Skywalker quickly exited, and he asked the clones what was going on. Rex didn't expect this at all, and he began fumbling for words as Kix yelled that he called for Anakin to return, to help them. Rex nodded, then told Anakin what happened after the execution was called off. Krell sent his men against each other, and now they are going to arrest him. Anakin looked to Rex, Fives, Jesse, Kix, and every other one of the clones in this group, and he got side by side with Rex, saying they'll do it together. And so Anakin and the clones entered the elevator, and no one said a word. Some of the men may have been wondering if Anakin was just like Krell, others trusted Anakin without a doubt, and together, as the door opened, the clones spread out into the room, surrounding Krell. He slowly turned around, facing Anakin and Rex as Anakin ignited his blade, telling Krell that in the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, he is under arrest. Krell just softly laughed, telling Anakin he was always one to disobey orders. Choosing the clones will not be wise. Anakin didn't say a word, and everyone began slowly closing in on Krell as he smiled and said, "It's treason, then," before igniting all 4 of his blades and spinning them to kill 4 clones, then using a force push to send the rest of the clones crashing hard into the wall. Anakin didn't budge, but Krell turned and smashed the window before flipping out of it, landing hard on the ground. More clones ran at Krell, firing at him, and Anakin followed by jumping out of the window and landing behind Krell as he ran into the forest. Anakin chased him as quickly as he could, and he yelled at the clones to have a couple of them get into Umbaran ships to help search for Krell through the air. Once in the forest, Anakin held his blade up as he looked around for the fallen Jedi. Anakin thought he heard Krell laughing, but realized the wind may be playing tricks on him. Rex and the others caught up as 2 ships flew overhead, shining their lights down into the forest. Krell could be anywhere. Anakin and the clones moved further into the forest, listening, looking, waiting. And finally the booming voice of Krell called out to Anakin. He told Skywalker that he can feel his inner darkness. Everyone can. The Jedi, the Sith, Obi-Wan. And he said the Council should have never let him into the Order. It will be their downfall. Anakin called out that he would never join the dark side. He is not weak like Krell. And Krell laughed again, saying he simply accepted his darkness, while Anakin hides who he truly is. Anakin was frantically looking around when Krell finally emerged, jumping from atop a tree to smash his lightsabers through one of the Umbaran ships with the clone inside. It crashed to the ground, and Anakin ran to the crash, moving through the smoke to save the clone pilot, when 4 blades ignited in the smoke and swung down at Anakin. He dodged the initial swings, swinging back at Krell with 2 of them as they finally began their duel, aggressively cutting through trees, trying to defeat each other. Anakin's skill in the Force and with his blade had the potential to far surpass any Jedi alive, and he knew it. He stepped forward with confidence, easily deflecting the swing from one of Krell's blades as their sabers were clashing in the red glow of the forests. The clones were circled around the 2 of them, looking for openings to fire, but Krell and Skywalker were moving too fast. The clones didn't want to distract Anakin. Krell held one of his sabers over his head, as the other made a sweeping arc that cut through the air around Anakin's legs. The combination of these blows would have killed many Jedi with less experience, but Anakin has been in as many lightsaber fights as anyone else. He was ready for this. He brought his own weapon up to meet Krell's, then rapidly moved into a downward arc to deflect the swing of Krell's other weapon. The 2 dual-bladed sabers were hard to defend against, but Anakin was quick. As he and Krell exchanged clashes, Anakin quickly brought his own blade upward once more, slicing into the hilt of Krell's upper weapon, severing it in half. Both pieces of the saber clattered to the ground, and now Anakin gave Krell a smile, taunting the fallen Jedi, hoping he overplays his hand. Krell moved back in with his one saber, but now Anakin was being overly aggressive, not being merciful at all, feeling the Force swirl around him at every blow, pressing the attack, slamming his fist into the ground, and Krell stumbled backwards as Anakin jumped forward, and as Anakin was trying to get back into the battle, Krell was able to spin forward now, slashing twice, then tried to hit Anakin in the face with his hilt, but Anakin cut through Krell's other saber, and Krell was now left with just half of a green blade. Krell saw now that he would not defeat Anakin in a fair fight. The clones were all circled around again, and Krell had an idea. He would use Anakin's mercy against him. He reached out, grabbing Rex with the Force, pulling the clone towards his blade, and as expected, Anakin leapt forward to save the clone captain. Krell quickly dropped Rex to the ground, and in this distraction he was able to slice forward on Anakin, cutting him across the face. Everyone fell silent as Anakin stumbled to his knees, yelling out in pain. The clones looked to their leader as he said, "I can't see," and Krell kicked him unconscious before grabbing Anakin's limp body taking off through the forest once more. The clones were in shock. Krell was gone just like that, and Rex stood back up, ordering his men to get back to the tower, contact General Kenobi, warn him of what is coming. Obi-Wan was on the other side of the forest, inside of the captured capital, when he received a transmission from Clone Trooper Oppo. Cody and Obi-Wan took it together, and Oppo quickly recapped everything that happened. Obi-Wan was deep in thought and despair for the clones that died at the blade of a Jedi. But he felt even worse when Oppo revealed that Krell was likely headed there to steal a ship and try to escape. Cody said they'll do whatever it takes to bring Krell down, and Kenobi thanked Oppo before ending the transmission. Obi-Wan would spread all of his men out across the city to every single hangar bay, making sure no ship could take off without them knowing. And he stood atop the Capitol Tower roof, waiting, watching, needing to save Anakin. They waited for quite a while, until Obi-Wan saw the green blade ignite at the far end of the city. Obi-Wan flipped all the way down to the ground, landing next to a squad of clones, and they all ran to the hangar where Krell was spotted. A Republic gunship flown by Krell took off into the air, but before it could fly away, Obi-Wan reached out, grabbing it with the Force. The gunship put all its power into the engines, and Kenobi was using both hands, with his feet skidding across the ground. Obi-Wan closed his eyes, giving himself to the Force, thinking about Anakin, and in this moment, he was finally able to crash Krell's ship back into the ground. Obi-Wan and the 20 clones surrounded the ship as Krell was grabbing at his head. His final saber was broken. He was defeated. Cody was about to shoot him with a stun blast, as Krell was accepting this defeat. He would find a way to free himself, Krell thought. But before Cody could shoot, Anakin woke up, and a blue saber ignited through Krell's back. The fallen Jedi died looking up at Anakin Skywalker, and Anakin fell back to his knees, grabbing at his eyes. Krell blinded him, and he was basically begging Obi-Wan to help him, as Obi-Wan ran up, telling Anakin it would be alright. The Jedi Master walked his former Padawan back to a transport, where he would be brought back to a Republic Venator, taken back to Coruscant. Once on the ship, Anakin was knocked out to deal with the pain, and he could be bandaged up. He stopped Krell from killing more clones, but it cost him his vision. When Anakin eventually did wake up, he waited for his vision to come to him, but it never did. He quickly remembered everything and was filled with anxiety until a soft hand touched his, and Padme called out to him, telling Anakin she's here, she will always be here. The two of them shared a long hug, as Anakin found out he was inside the Jedi Temple medical rooms. Obi-Wan requested for Padme to be here. Anakin started talking about how his life as a Jedi was over. He can't fight in a war like this. He can't train Ahsoka like this. He failed. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka were both here as well, and they assured Anakin that with proper training, it is possible that he can become more powerful than he was before he was blinded. One of the first lessons every Jedi learned is how to use the Force to see things around them. Your eyes can play tricks on you, but if one masters the ability to see through the Force, then there is no need for eyesight. This would be much harder to learn while actually being blinded, and Anakin heard this. It did give him some hope, but as he stood up from the table, he crashed into a medical tray, and everything clattered to the floor. He felt useless, clumsy, and he had temple guards guide him to his room. Once inside, Anakin fell onto his bed, and he let himself wallow in his pain and sadness. He was supposed to be the chosen one, the most powerful being in the galaxy, and yet he was tricked into being blinded by some fallen Jedi. The more sad he got, the more tired he got, and soon Anakin was asleep. A week would go by in the war, and Anakin would slowly begin feeling less sorry for himself and begin training himself to see through the Force inside of his room. He knew that Obi-Wan and Ahsoka were out in battle together. Padme was off-planet in peace negotiations that were likely to go nowhere, but Anakin was focused on himself. The silence around him while inside his temple quarters was a very stark contrast to the chaos that had left him behind. The darkness that now enveloped his vision was suffocating, a constant reminder of his new weakness and vulnerability. Yet the Force pulsed through him, more vibrant and alive than ever before. Anakin reached out with his mind, trying to grasp the world around him, to see without seeing. The process was grueling. Every step forward was met with 2 steps back. His frustration mounted with every day that went by. It was like training an injury that refused to heal. But each failure taught him more of how to succeed. He could soon feel the presence of objects around him, the faintest shifts in the air, the subtle hum of life. Slowly, Anakin began to navigate his room, stumbling less with each passing day, realizing he knew the exact layout of his room without even needing to feel around anymore. One big problem with this new training that Anakin was putting himself through was that he shut out those closest to him. Anakin felt like he was a burden until he was at full strength, so Ahsoka was temporarily reassigned to Obi-Wan, and the two Jedi felt very sorry for Anakin. They would sometimes see him in the training room making little progress, and they hoped he would come back to them soon. Padme missed Anakin the most, but in Anakin's mind, Padme married the strong, confident, powerful Anakin. She didn't sign up for this version of him, so Anakin left her alone, much to Padme's dismay. After a month, Anakin's solitary training had yielded significant progress, and he was letting Master Yoda help guide him along this path. He ventured to the temple's training room much more often, where droids awaited him and Yoda. The transition in this training was daunting. No longer confined to his own training or the familiar layout of his quarters, Anakin faced a new environment. The training droids moved swiftly, blaster bolts consistently hitting Anakin, and Anakin's reliance on the Force became stronger by the day. He no longer could anticipate attacks with his eyes, but he had to feel the intent behind them. He could hear the faint sound of the droids powering up. He could feel the heat of the lasers approaching him. He was beyond dedicated to the progress, and soon he was progressing faster than before. By the third month, Anakin's progress was nothing short of extraordinary, at least mentally. Physically, Anakin looked like he hadn't shaved or cut his hair in months, because, well, he hadn't. He focused solely on finding this power again. He moved to the final stage of his training, lightsaber combat, facing off against Jedi Knights, and he found new challenges. Opponents were unpredictable, unlike the droids. Tactics and strategies varied, different lightsaber forms caught him off guard. Yet the Force guided Anakin, transforming his blindness from a weakness into a strength. Eyes played tricks on him, and Anakin's combat style evolved, relying on intuition and the Force's guidance rather than his sight. Each swing of his blade was precise, each parry was perfectly timed. The darkness that once crippled him became a vast, boundless plane through which the Force flowed through him. And soon, Anakin welcomed this darkness. It showed him how to find the light. More and more time would go by, as Anakin was back to his power before the injury, only now he was much more mature. And Yoda soon spoke to Anakin on a personal level, telling him to talk to his friends again. They need him, just as much as he has always needed them. Anakin genuinely thanked Yoda for all of his help, as Yoda was now headed to Kashyyyk to help with the droid attack on the Wookiees. In the recent weeks, the Jedi were getting closer and closer to discovering the identity of Darth Sidious, and an attack on Coruscant was launched recently. Above the planet, Dooku and Grievous had captured Palpatine, but before they could jump to hyperspace, Yoda and Windu fought and defeated Dooku. He was killed as the ship crashed into the ground, but with Dooku gone, the Jedi were closing in on Grievous to make Palpatine end this war once and for all. As the Jedi were searching for Grievous, Palpatine himself was considering new plans. Anakin hadn't stopped by to speak with him in so long. Ever since his injury to Pong Krell of all people, Palpatine had to abandon any hope of Anakin being his apprentice, and he pictured young Skywalker wallowing away in the temple, stumbling around without his eyesight. It was a pathetic thing to imagine. Palpatine instead would go without a true apprentice, at least until someone close to Anakin in power level was born or revealed, and he would instead turn many vulnerable Jedi to be his band of Inquisitors. He would win. He didn't need Skywalker. And in the temple, as Obi-Wan was getting ready for a new council meeting to discuss Grievous, he felt a familiar presence behind him. It was Anakin, and Anakin walked up to his old master, giving him a hug. Anakin could feel the joy radiating off of Kenobi, and Anakin apologized for being so distant. The two of them hadn't truly spoken in so long. Obi-Wan told Anakin there was no need to apologize, and that he just spoke to Yoda, who praised Anakin's ability to overcome his injury. The two of them walked through the temple together, enjoying each other's company, until they came upon Ahsoka. In this timeline, Ahsoka was not blamed for the temple bombing, and she stayed in the Order under Obi-Wan's teachings. She actually became a true Jedi Knight about a week ago, and had full control of the 501st. Anakin now walked with Ahsoka, congratulating her on the promotion. Ahsoka and Anakin shared some heartwarming laughs, as Ahsoka told Anakin many stories about the war and the clones, while Anakin was training himself back to full strength. Anakin promised Ahsoka that once this war is over, they will be spending much more time together. Anakin missed Obi-Wan, who he saw as a brother, and he missed Ahsoka, who he saw as a sister. And Ahsoka would learn now that she was assigned to go to Mandalore with half of the 501st, while the other half stays on Coruscant. Mandalore was where the people were suffering under Darth Maul, and Obi-Wan was going to Utapau to face Grievous. So while the two of them left to their new battles, Anakin went to see his wife. Padme was alone in her apartment when C-3PO informed her that a guest was waiting on the balcony. Padme remembered the times when this would mean that Anakin was here, and today she was filled with relief as she walked out to see Anakin, staring out at the traffic, turning and hugging his wife, apologizing and thanking her for being patient with him. Padme told Anakin she would have waited for him forever. She knew there was so much light in him, it just had to be reawakened. The two of them would spend the day together, and Padme would give Anakin a custom wrap around his eyes that she made for him, until Anakin had to return to the temple, as Windu called for him. Upon arriving back, Windu told Anakin that Grievous is dead, and the Jedi are moving in on Palpatine to make sure he gives up his emergency powers. Anakin asked Windu what he needs from him, and Windu assigned Anakin to be the protector of the temple. If Palpatine somehow tries anything, then Anakin must be ready. Windu trusted Anakin. He saw his growth. He knew the boy was ready for this, and Anakin said it will be done. And so as the shuttle carrying Windu, Saesee Tiin, Kit Fisto, and Agen Kolar traveled across Coruscant, Anakin had evacuation ships prepared in secret, just in case. He was working with Shaak Ti, Kelleran Beq, and Sindralic, and in his office, Palpatine could feel the approaching Jedi shuttle coming his way. He didn't need to wait any longer. He could accuse them of treason when this was all over. So Palpatine walked to his communicator, sending out a message to the clones across the galaxy. Execute Order 66. In the Jedi Temple, Anakin soon felt something, and he stood atop the main doors, hearing the sounds of thousands of boots marching and getting louder and louder up the stairs. He knew something has gone terribly wrong. Anakin turned to the other three Jedi, telling them it's time to evacuate. There is no time to wait. Sindralic, Kelleran Beq, and the Jedi Temple guards were going to handle the initial defenses, while Shaak Ti and Anakin handle evacuation. The 501st clone soon entered the temple, and Anakin could feel that they have somehow changed. These were not the men he knew. They were altered somehow. They were here to kill without mercy. Anakin was assigned to protect the younglings, and he was soon guiding them through the temple, away from the firepower of the clones versus the Jedi, when finally he reached the temple hangar. The evacuation ships were being flown by Jedi, and were waiting just outside the hangar, but as Anakin entered the room, a yellow lightsaber swung for his head. Anakin ducked, igniting his blue blade. The temple guard, now the Grand Inquisitor, told Anakin he would not be allowed to leave. Anakin told the guard to surrender, or he will have no choice but to defeat him. The guard laughed, looking at Anakin. He would defeat Anakin easily, he thought, and the guard took a step to the left, and Anakin heard it so perfectly. He felt the swing from the yellow lightsaber, and Anakin easily sidestepped, before grabbing the lightsaber hilt, shutting down the saber, and stabbing the temple guard with his own blue blade. Anakin apologized as he died, and then guided the younglings to the evacuation ships. The Force flowed through him like never before. Across Coruscant, Palpatine waited in his office as Windu and Fisto entered. Agen Kolar and Saesee Tiin were killed by the clone troopers throughout the building, but the other two Jedi arrived, igniting their blades, telling Palpatine that his time was up. And a duel would begin as Sidious took on Windu and Fisto, battling through the office. Back in the temple, the evacuation ships took off with all of the younglings safely aboard, and it escaped into hyperspace for Tython. Anakin sprinted back into the temple, using the Force and his blade to defeat clone troopers, doing his best not to kill any of them, instead just knocking them out. With Shaak Ti, the temple guards, Kelleran and Sindralic fighting with him, the Jedi were able to drive this half of the 501st into defeat, as they were killed, knocked out, or forced to retreat as the rest of the Jedi boarded the final transport out of here. But not Anakin. Anakin took his own ship to the executive office, using the Force to fly perfectly through the air until he got to the office window, diving through it as he heard lightsabers clashing. In the other room, Windu and Fisto were both still alive, battling Sidious to the window, and Anakin leapt into the fray, helping the Jedi defeat Sidious once and for all. Sidious was overwhelmed by the three Jedi, dying to Anakin's blade after Windu pushed him hard to the ground. And with the Sith Lord dead, the three Jedi took off to Tython to meet with the rest of the surviving Jedi Order. 1 year later, Anakin was sitting by the Lake of Naboo with his wife and his twin children. Not long after the defeat of Palpatine, the Republic learned the truth and the war was ended, with Bail Organa becoming the new Chancellor. The clones were all freed of their inhibitor chips and allowed back into the Republic. Anakin officially rekindled his relationship with Obi-Wan after he defeated Grievous, and with Ahsoka after she defeated Maul. The galaxy was at peace, and Anakin was living the life he always dreamed of. Despite no longer having his eyesight, he felt the world around him like never before, and his wife and friends we're here to support him through all of it, as Jedi Master Anakin Skywalker was raising his children to soon be the next generation of Jedi. And folks, that is where our story ends today. One of the longer ones I've done in a while. Really focused, I just recently, like the last couple days, just turned on the Umbaran arc of Clone Wars. I just, said why not? And the whole time I was like, alright, I gotta make a video about this. It's a masterpiece. It's so good. So, yeah, decided to do that. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to this one. Yeah, Anakin goes blind from Pong Krell. I think Anakin defeats Pong Krell in battle pretty easily, so I wanted to kind of have a conflict here where Krell uses Rex to kind of distract Anakin, and then blinds him. Anakin ultimately stabs him in the heart after they crash because of Obi-Wan, but yeah, that was fun to write. Hope you guys enjoyed that. The second half of the story was just Anakin overcoming this, not failure, but injury. So, thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.